Dear Patriots, before the news starts, please subscribe to our patriotic channel by clicking the subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up to this video. Don't forget to leave your opinion below in the comments section. Share the news on Facebook and Twitter so your friends see it. Thank you.
Trump after dark: the White House is losing hope edition. President Donald Trump's right-hand woman is headed for the exit. White House Communications Director Hope Hicks, an ever-present at Trump's side during his presidential campaign and on into presidency, will resign from her position in the coming days, Politico's Darren Samuelsohn, Restuccia and Eliana Johnson report. Hicks' departure comes a day after she refused to answer most questions in front of a House committee investigating Russian election interference. White House aides, though, portrayed her departure as unrelated, a cumulative effect of working for Trump for a long time. The high-profile nature of a job with a freewheeling boss who is his own communications director, coupled with the stresses of the Russia investigation and most recently with her relationship to former White House aide, Rob Porter, all combined to send her for the exits. Hicks' departure today distracted from what would otherwise have been a remarkable display of political independence from Trump. On the same day that students from Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School returned for the first time, Trump appeared to buck his own party and the National Rifle Association in a televised meeting, Politico's Ilana Shore and Burgess Everett report. During an hour-long televised meeting with lawmakers in both parties, Trump stiff-armed congressional Republicans' guns strategy while endorsing some bipartisan ideas Democrats are pushing. Elsewhere in President Trump's orbit. No hope. One lesson of Hicks' tenure at the White House is that President Trump is his own communications director and will consistently leave his staff scrambling to keep up. General discontent. In the day's third biggest story, Attorney General Jeff Sessions defended himself after President Donald Trump lashed into him on Twitter for the way he is investigating allegations of FBI overreach. Self-inflicted? The Washington Post reports that Robert Mueller's investigation is looking closely at a period of time when President Trump appeared to want to drive Sessions from his job at the Department of Justice. Jared not jarred. After his downgrade in top-secret clearance, Jared Kushner showed up to work as usual, projecting an air that nothing had changed. See you in September, a judge set a September 17 start to Paul Manafort's trial on charges brought by special counsel Robert Mueller. Not very Nobel. BBC reports that a nomination for President Trump for a Nobel Peace Prize is being investigated as potentially fraudulent. On goal, ESPN reports that the United States' joint bid with Mexico and Canada to host the 2026 World Cup is in peril, in part because of President Trump's policies. There you have it. You're caught up on the Trump administration. Wednesday is a wrap. Trump decides on steep tariffs on steel and aluminum imports. President Donald Trump on Thursday ignited a possible trade war by announcing a decision to impose tariffs of 25% on steel imports and 10% on aluminum to protect both industries from unfairly traded imports that the Commerce Department has determined pose a threat to national security. It'll be 25% for steel. It will be 10% for aluminum. It'll be for a long period of time, Trump said at a listening session with steel and aluminum industry executives at the White House. We'll be signing it next week. And you'll have protection. The announcement, which is likely to be met with outrage and retaliation from countries around the world, followed a fierce debate within the administration about whether to make an announcement Thursday, according to people briefed on the matter. New tariffs on steel and aluminum imports could lead to a tit-for-tat trade fight with China, the European Union and other major world trade powers. The internal debate made for a hectic morning at the White House, as administration officials were trying to figure out what exactly Trump was planning to say at the meeting, and some in the West Wing were strongly encouraging the president not to announce the planned tariffs. Senior Treasury Department officials on Thursday morning were prepared for Trump to announce major tariffs and were deeply worried about market reaction. Trump and Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross were joined at the listening session by Chief of Staff John Kelly, Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer, National Economic Council Director Gary Cohn, White House Advisor Jared Kushner, Deputy White House Staff Secretary Derek Lyons, White House Trade Advisor Peter Navarro, White House Counsel Don Gunn, and Domestic Policy Advisor Stephen Miller. Cohn has been arguing vociferously behind the scenes against the tariffs. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson, National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster and Defense Secretary Jim Mattis have all also raised concerns about the planned actions, arguing that they could damage the United States' relationship with crucial allies. But Trump has long been dead set on imposing tariffs, and he has the support of the trade hawks in his administration, including Navarro, Lighthizer, and Ross. The debate within the administration has raged for months and pitted Trump's top aides against one another. Trump's final decision marks the culmination of a nearly 11-month investigation into whether imports of steel and aluminum posed a threat to U.S. national security. Shortly before he resigned amid domestic abuse allegations, White House Staff Secretary Rob Porter got into a heated argument about the tariffs with Navarro in the Oval Office in front of the president, according to a person familiar with the issue. Cohn and Porter had worked together for months to try to postpone, kill or narrow the scope of the tariffs. Porter organized weekly trade meetings at the White House to discuss the tariffs and other main issues in a bid to give the debate a more formal structure. But Porter's resignation removed a fierce opponent of the tariffs from the West Wing and revived the chaotic policy review process that defined the early weeks of Trump's presidency. Foreign trading partners have already promised swift retribution if they are caught in any major tariff action. EU Trade Chief Cecilia Malmström warned earlier this week that the 28-nation trading bloc, a major producer of steel, was discussing different options. If he hits hard, we will have to take countermeasures, the commissioner said after arriving at a meeting of EU trade ministers this week. Trump ordered the Commerce Department to initiate investigations last April examining whether the imports posed a threat to national security. The probes were invoked under the rarely used Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. Commerce released the findings of those investigations and its recommendations earlier in February, finding that imports of the metals did endanger national security. Ross made 3 recommendations for both steel and aluminum imports. However, Trump could ignore that advice and choose his own options. For steel, the first option is the 24% tariff on all imports. The second would exclude most NATO allies, while imposing a tariff of 53% on imports from a group of 12 countries: Brazil, China, Costa Rica, Egypt, India, Malaysia, Russia, South Africa, South Korea, Thailand, Turkey, and Vietnam. In addition, future imports from those countries would be limited to the amount they exported to the United States in 2017. The third steel option would not impose any tariffs, but would limit shipments from around the world to 63% of each country's 2017 exports to the United States. The 3 recommended options for curbing aluminum imports follow a similar pattern: a 7.7% tariff on aluminum exports from all countries, a 23.7% tariff on all aluminum products from China, Russia, Venezuela and Vietnam, as well as a quota at 100% of their 2017 shipment levels, or a universal quota that would cap imports from all countries at 86.7% of their 2017 exports to the U.S. Mattis weighed in later with his own memo, where he agreed with the findings of the investigations. But the defense chief cautioned against taking action that could alienate allies. DoD continues to be concerned about the negative impact on our key allies regarding the recommended options within the report, Mattis said in the memo. Mattis also argued that the Defense Department did not believe it was at risk of not being able to get enough steel or aluminum for defense purposes, because the U.S. military's demand for those products is only about 3% of U.S. production. In his memo, Mattis stated a preference for targeted tariffs that would focus on certain countries, rather than a global tariff or quota. He also urged the administration to make clear to domestic steel companies and labor leaders that these tariffs and quotas are conditional, and suggest to them that some action is needed on their part to respond to foreign competition. Chinese President Xi Jinping's top economic advisor Liu He is expected at the White House on Thursday for a separate meeting with Cohn, Lighthizer, and Mnuchin. China has said it would act to protect its economic interests if hit by steel and aluminum tariffs, although U.S. anti-dumping and countervailing duties on its steel exports have already significantly reduced its shipments to the United States. Doug Balmer, Ben White and Lorraine Wohlert contributed to this report. Trump recaps gun control meaning some good and some not so good ideas emerged. President Donald Trump on Thursday offered an online readout of his meeting with lawmakers on gun control held a day earlier, declaring that a bill should emerge from the conversations that have begun in the wake of a mass shooting last month at a Florida high school. Many ideas, some good and some not so good, emerged from our bipartisan meeting on school safety yesterday at the White House, Trump wrote on Twitter. Background checks a big part of conversation. Gun-free zones are proven targets of killers. After many years, a bill should emerge. Respect Second Amendment. The president held an hour-long meeting Wednesday with lawmakers from both parties at which he chided Republicans for being afraid of the NRA and advocated for raising to 21 the age at which certain types of rifles can be purchased. Such a proposal goes against positions held by many conservatives, as does another of Trump's proposals, expanded background checks for gun purchasers. That Trump has staked out a substantially different position from that of the NRA has surprised some, given the support that the gun rights group lent the president during the 2016 campaign. Still, lawmakers from both parties expressed skepticism Wednesday that the president would hold fast to the proposals he outlined on Wednesday, recalling a similar meeting on immigration held in January, during which Trump delighted Democrats with his apparent willingness to cut a deal only to retrench to a more conservative-friendly position days later.